put more people behind bars than anywhere else in the entire world. And here in the US, 1 in 100 adults are behind bars at any given time right now. And then in addition to that, we have so that's about 2.2 million. We have an additional 4.6 million people on some form of correctional supervision, probation, parole, those GPS ankle bracelet monitors, having to check in, having to have meetings, do your analysis and things like that. A total of 7 million people under the control to some degree of the criminal justice system in this country. So here's your visual illustration of that. And the time frame is particularly telling, right? Going along through the ages here, and then around 1972. What's going on in 1972?
War on drugs.
Yeah, man, there's all kinds of social upheaval and social movements and things that were very scary to the establishment in this country. And a whole hippie culture that was very frightening to, I think, a lot of people in power. And so then, before right about here, did people use drugs? You bet they did, right? You guys watch Deadwood, watch them, right? Everybody was using drugs, sure they use drugs, but now it's illegal. Around here. Very illegal, extremely illegal, and it got more illegal. And then, come around down to here, 88, 92, what happened then? It was not just the war on drugs, it was the war on crime. Yeah. Mandatory minimums, what else? What's the one that we always heard about?
3 strikes.
3 strikes and you're out, right? Truth in sentencing is another one. Those swept across the country. Right? Most states adopted those, mostly because the federal government said, we'll give you money to build prisons if you adopt these laws. So they became very, very popular. And the United States entered into this incarceration boom that you see there. I mean, that incredibly steep and rapid rise, right? In the space of like 20 years. Our population went through.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Have you compared that graphic to the rising population specifically? Because I know in 1925 there were
She's asking about a comparison of population relative to this
I don't know the exact numbers, but I can tell you
incarceration
that
rate
it's still
growth.
absolutely disproportionate to population growth. And to crime rate, interestingly, and we'll get to that next, but that's a great question. So in addition to that picture, that's just your adult felony right offenders and misdemeanors. What I want to bring into this conversation are the other people in cages, right? Youth, 80,000 kids are held in youth detention, juvenile facilities in this country, and immigrant detention, right? 429,000 immigrants and 250 detention facilities, give or take. It's going up, it's going down. That is a lot of people. And this is in spite of what's going on with crime. If you didn't see this chart or anything, is crime up or down right now? Straw poll, side of what? Says it's down, says it's down. I can't believe it, empty people. Right? Do you think most people think crime's down? No. No, why? Crime is everywhere on your TV.
Media convolution.
Absolutely. It is like, if it bleeds, it leads. That's, the newspaper motto. That is, chaos and fear and danger and violence sells newspapers and it sells advertising, and that is what you see. Actually, crime violent crime is at a record low in this country, across the board, everywhere. And so this massive incarceration boom, at some points crime has gone up, at some points crime has gone down. Over that period, the incarceration is not responding to trends in crime. I've got Arizona statistics here because that's what's in all my PowerPoints. I did try to branch out for you, but it does kind of give you the national trends are the gray bars. So that'll give you something to compare to something, yeah.
Isn't that where you got Sheriff Joe, isn't that?
Yes,
Joe
sir.
Arpaio.
Doesn't that skew things a bit when you got a
Yep.
Nazi like that?
Yeah, well, Joe just runs a jail.
Joe
Right?
just went to jail?
Joe just runs the Maricopa County Jail. You think he ran the whole damn world. But actually, Joe Arpaio runs one jail in Maricopa County. But what he is a caricature, right? What he is a cartoon. It's Yosemite Sam in my mind. I'm learning this, goodness. I don't know, maybe I'm old, right? But that's my point of reference is Yosemite Sam. So, to some degree, there are definitely people that go from his jail into prisons, but jails, 70% of people in jails are pre-trial. They haven't been convicted of anything yet. And many of them never will be.
Misdemeanors, that's a lot on misdemeanor charges
That's
too.
right. So people serving less than a year for misdemeanor, but that's still very small.
Your data on mass incarceration, does it include those who are in jail or just those who are in prison?
That first slide, that mass incarceration is jails and prisons and supervision. Good question.
Would it be nice to
That's
see
great.
at least a position?
Okay. I'm sorry, yes. I mean, there's so much information to share with you about this. It's hard to know what people are going to need, but the information's out there. I really recommend the Sentencing Project. Sentencingproject.org has tons of materials and all the breakdowns. Racial disparities has been in the news here in Iowa, I noticed, right? Because why?
We have the
You have
highest.
them. You have some of the highest. You're certainly not alone in that. It may be one of the highest, but it's not a unique trend. So here's your national numbers, right? One in 9 men in their lifetime will be incarcerated. But if you happen to be African American, it's 1 in 3. 1 in 3, that's half your family, that's half your community, it's half the people you know, at least a third, right? And one of the things that I find is that a lot of the discussion right now on mass incarceration is framed as a very black-white issue, right? The new Jim Crow, really influential book, really powerful, talking about the legacy of slavery and racism against African Americans in this country. But it's also really important to point out that Latinos are also massively overrepresented in our prison system. Coming from Arizona, that's a much more relevant statistic for us. Yeah.
Does this represent jails too, or is this actual imprisonment for the sentence?
This is jails and prisons. Prevalence of
So you'd get into
imprisonment.
that even if you went to jail for OWI for 1 night?
Yep. So in your lifetime, right? You are going to get sucked into that system to some degree. And here's your Arizona breakdown for what it's worth. What's interesting for me, having done this work in Arizona for 15 years, is that this just flipped, right? So your general Arizona population are the blue lines, right? White folks, Anglos, still the majority, 56%, but only 39% of state prisoners. Now, in the last 3 years, Latinos now are a greater percentage of our prisoners than white folks in Arizona for the first time. And of course, African Americans massively disproportionately incarcerated in Arizona. They're like less than 5% of the population, 13% of our state. So one of the things that's important, I think, to break this down, because we're hopefully going to get to talking about alternatives and what works better, and how to address these issues, is that more importantly than the who sometimes is the why. And the why, like 99.999% of the time, is drugs. Right? Ask any law enforcement official, ask any prosecutor, and they will tell you that 85–95% of the people that they see, crime was drug involved, right? So if the actual crime itself wasn't having or using or selling drugs,
Not be able to
it
read
was
out
being
these,
high at the time that they
taking
committed the
pictures
crime.
of each of these
Not
things
really
and I'll
using
post
the
them on
greatest
Facebook
enough
later.
perhaps. Or committing a crime, theft, burglary, something like that, to support their habit, to get money to buy drugs, right? So the root cause of a lot of criminal behavior in our society really gets down to addiction and substance abuse. And that is not getting addressed, right? You cannot incarcerate addiction out of people. And I don't know about Iowa, but I can tell you that in Arizona, people are not getting help for this issue when they're incarcerated. So these are our own DOC's statistics that I love to throw in their face because they're so astonishing. 75% of prisoners assessed by our Department of Corrections, our DOC says, 75% of these people need drug treatment. How many of them
DOC
get
is
it?
Department of Corrections.
Not even 7, like almost 7%.